Should have your templates all set up. We're going to be selecting the millimeter template. Of course not. There we go. Ready? You're going to be selecting your millimeter template, and you're going to say OK. What I wouldn't do without Ron. There's a pause while it's locating the template, bringing it up. Everybody should be here. If there's anybody who's not here, you need to raise your hand, get Ron to help you. Notice right down here what the units are. The units are set to millimeter because that's the template that I selected. Those of you on laptops have a little easier because you don't have to reset it up every single frickin' time, right? Okay? So, remember in the book, the first thing she does is she saves it so that when you do the autosave or the click on the save, it's good. So we're going to come up here and we're going to do a save on the standard toolbar. A lot of people I was helping on Tuesday, they still didn't know the name for things, right? So this right here, this is the standard toolbar. This right here is the file menu. What's this right here? The ribbon. Anna got it. Ding, 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 ding. Okay. This right here is the view display bar or the heads up toolbar, one or the other. Okay? What's this right here? Anybody? The browser, the feature browser, the part browser, the assembly browser, the drawing browser, depending on what type of document you're in. That's always called the browser because it lets you browse or navigate through your part or your assembly or your drawing. So if I tell you to go to the browser, that's where the area where I expect you to go. All right, so we're going to do a save. You want to save in your homework or projects file. This is going to be called guide. Guide support. Okay, now a lot of the parts that we design are symmetrical. We like symmetry. It's pleasing to the eye, it's easier to design, and a lot of times when you're designing an existing part or reverse engineering something that's symmetrical, you can leverage off that symmetry. You can draw half of it and then copy it over, mirror over the other half, and makes it a little faster. So what we're going to be doing next is on page 1-95, and it uses a tool called Dynamic Mirror. And this tool is not available on the ribbon. It's available from the menu. So what I want you to do is I want you to watch me and then do it. So you have an opportunity right now to sit on your hands, okay, and think about, watch what I'm doing, and then you're going to do it. So we're going to start our sketch on the front plane. So remember to start a sketch on the front plane. You go to front plane and say new sketch. Okay, so here we are on the front plane. Now when you have something that's symmetrical, you need what's called an axis of symmetry. Okay? Basically a line that you're going to mirror about. Okay? So we want them to create an axis of symmetry, but we don't want that geometry to be part of our part or a sketch. It's basically an axis or a reference. So if you come over to the line tool, there's this little down arrow right here. And under the down arrow, notice there's center line. So you can use a center line as an axis of symmetry, and what's nice about that is that it doesn't become part of the geometry. SolidWorks basically ignores it in terms of thinking of it as the outline that's getting extruded or revolved or whatever. So a lot of people, they create the line tool and they say, shoot, I meant to select the center line. And then they hit escape and they select the center line. You don't necessarily have to do that. You can come over here to the properties panel and notice right here you can say for construction. So you can click on for construction and then it becomes a center line. So you don't have to escape out. All right, so I can click on this origin. I'm just going to draw a line straight up vertically, and notice I look for that little vertical symbol to apply that. And I'm going to right click and go select, and notice it placed a center line. Now if I change my mind and I want to use that center line as a regular line, I can select it and uncheck for construction, and then it becomes a regular line. Likewise, if I change my mind and I say, no, I really did want it to be a center line, I can select it and click on for construction, and it goes back to being a center line. See that? So you can go, so you don't have to delete and recreate. You can always toggle between the two of them just by selecting. Now we want to get to the point where we're going to do the dynamic mirror. Right? This is where it gets a little bit tricky. You want to go to Tools, Sketch Tools, Dynamic Mirror. So right here and right here off of the menu. All right, that's where you locate it. So it asks you, Tools, Sketch Tools, Dynamic Mirror, and then it asks you to select the line that you're going to use as your axis of symmetry. And so I'm going to select this center line, and notice what happens is I get these two hash marks appear, and that lets me know that I am in dynamic mirror mode. It's showing me that that center line is now going to be treated as an axis of symmetry. So now I can start creating my geometry. I want you to watch this. It looks really cool. All right, so I select the line tool. I come and select this endpoint. What happened? As I was drawing, it automatically knew to copy over to the other side, mirrored over to the axis of symmetry. Is that cool? Okay, so now it's your turn to see if you can do the same thing, create the same shape. The shape's on page 1-96 if you want to look at it. Right? If you get in trouble, raise your hand, and Ron and I will help you. So we're going to add the dimensions. The dimensions are on page 1-96. So this dimension's 80. Now if your sketch gets squished, don't get upset, right? Because it'll get fixed up as you go. So when you've got all your dimensions on, it should look like what you see on the screen. Okay, so we're on page 1-97, and the only thing left is to do a base extrude. And Akita? If I had the same dimensions as you, but mine says Underdefined? Maybe you need a coincident constraint between the endpoint of the vertical line and the origin, because that's the only constraint I added. We're going to do a mid-plane extrude. What that does is that keeps the front plane in the center of the part, and that of course also keeps our symmetry, right? So we like that. So if we do the features and then we come over to base extrude, one of our choices in the drop down is mid-plane. And what that means is it's going to extrude in both directions at the same time. And the total length here, the 30, that's the total length. So that means it's 15 on one side, 15 on the other side. SolidWorks automatically does the math for you. It just wants the total, and it knows if you're doing a mid-plane to just divide it in half on both sides. And then you want a green check. And notice, if I look at my front plane, notice my front plane is right in the center of this part. Do you see that? So that's nice. And I'm going to save it. Now the next thing we're going to be doing is we're going to be adding a slot to this face right here. Okay? So we want to do a sketch on this face. So to add a sketch to this face is, don't want to upgrade GrabCAD right this second. So I'm going to select this face, and remember there are two tools. I see a lot of people getting confused by these tools. The first tool is Edit Sketch. And if you click on Edit Sketch, that opens up the sketch for the base extrude that we just did. We don't want to edit a sketch, we want a new sketch. So we want the one on the bottom. That's the one that gives us a new sketch. Okay, so you want to have that face highlighted, and we want to go New Sketch. And remember, I had set my options to automatically go normal to my sketch. If you didn't set that on your options, you might have to switch to a normal view. All right, is there anybody who's having problems getting to a normal view or needs refresher on how to set their options to a normal view? Question.
The options.
Okay, so if you go to options, which is right here, right? So you go to options, and if you go to sketch, right here, do you see right here where it says auto rotate view normal to sketch plane? So that means that every time you set a sketch, it will automatically put you in a plan view. Now if you want that to be an option as you're working every time, add that to your flight checklist that you set that option, right? Okay, so we want to do a slot. Now we're very, very lucky because we have a slot tool right here on the ribbon. Do you see that? So we want to use that slot tool, and I'm going to be adding a slot to this side of the face. Okay, so I'm going to select the slot tool. I want you to watch me. Okay, and then you're going to do it. So I select the straight slot. And notice it gives you a bunch of different types of slots, which is very cool. And remember, it gives you the numbers. So if we have this first one, it's 1, 2, 3. First arc, second arc, and then the radius of the slot. So it's telling, what those numbers are doing is it's telling, those are left mouse clicks, right? 1, 2, 3. It's almost like a dance card, you know, doing the cha-cha or something. You know, those are where your feet need to go. This is where your left mouse needs to click. So I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, cha-cha-cha, right? And I had add dimensions enabled, and that automatically adds the dimensions for me. Isn't that nice? Then all I have to do is click on the dimensions, to change them. So I right-click select, and then I double-click on the dimensions, and this one I want to be, now in the book she has it R3, but the dimension that's given is the diameter dimension. So big error that a lot of students make is that they have add dimensions enabled. They aren't paying attention that this is a diameter dimension, and in the book she gives you a radius dimension. So if the radius is 3, what would the diameter be? 6. So I'm going to say 6. And then this dimension here is 10. Now in the book, she gives you a dimension from the edge to the arc. She gives you a dimension from here to here to locate that slot. And I say that has nothing to do with design intent, right? How do we really want to locate that slot? Center, on the center, right. So why would I do a dimension to the edge? I want to use a geometric constraint to center that slot and ensure that it's always centered no matter how wide the guide support is, right? So how do I do that? I'm going to add a relationship. I'm going to say add relation. I'm going to select the center point, and then I'm going to select this center point, and I'm going to say horizontal. It's always going to be centered on the slot. See that? So then I'm going to green check. All right. Now it's still blue. So what's missing? What's missing is the distance in the x direction. And again, she does it from the center. She says, okay, from the center point to here, I want it to be 30. And now it's fully defined. And I know it's fully defined because the color changed to black, right? And it says fully defined down here, right? And then I'm going to switch over to an isometric view. I'm going to go to features, and I'm going to do extruded cut, and I'm going to say through all, green check. And then I'm going to rename that feature slot, and I'm going to save it. Okay, so now it's your turn to place the slot. What do you mean the length of the oval? The slot? The dimensions are on page 1-99, and the slot is 10 millimeters long. Okay, so we're now on page 1-101, and we're going to mirror that slot to the other side. So the first question it might be, why didn't we mirror the sketch and then extrude both slots, right? Because you could do that. Why would we extrude it and then mirror it? I'm sure that inquiring minds want to know, right? Okay, the answer is, okay, 1, if we modify the slot and then we mirror it, then if we have a design change, we only have to change the first slot, and then the mirrored slot will automatically update. Whereas if we did it in a sketch, even if we did equal on the dimensioning and equal on the length and link the dimensioning and all that, it's still, it could create issues in terms of maintaining it, right? Extra work. Reason number 2 is that if you mirror it as a feature, your file size isn't as big. Okay? Now, is a small part, might not feel like it makes a big difference, but if this part is used 100 times in a big old ass car or an airplane or a boat, it's going to really add to the size and the computation that SOLIDWORKS has to do. So anytime you can reduce the amount of computation that SOLIDWORKS has to do, that's good. Because if your assembly is having a long time rebuilding or generating or anything, your boss comes over and says, why is it taking so long? You know? And then he starts looking at the way you're modeling. He says, why did you do that with sketches and not with features? You know, you're making your files way bigger than they need to be. You know, it's creating performance issues. He's not going to be very happy with you. But not only that, the other people who are having to use your parts in their assemblies, they're also not going to be happy with you. And some of them may actually go in your parts and redo it correctly, which won't reflect well on you. So you want to get good habits right from the start, right? So we want to mirror. I'm going to show you a couple different ways to mirror, because once again, I want you to develop your own sense of how to use the software. I'm going to show you a couple different ways. So way number one, I look at what I'm going to mirror about. I want to mirror about the right plane. So I highlight the right plane, I hold down my control key, and I select the slot in the browser. So I made my two selections in the browser. I said right plane and slot. This is kind of like the reverse Polish method. I'm selecting the objects before I select the tool, and then I'm going to select mirror right here, all right, on the ribbon. So I come over to the ribbon, I select mirror. Notice it automatically previews, because I've got partial preview, but not only that, it filled in the blanks right away, right? It knew that I was mirroring around the right plane, and it knew what I was mirroring because I had it pre-selected. And then all I have to do is go green check. All right? So method number one, pick the plane you want to mirror about, pick the features you want to mirror, then pick mirror, green check. That's method number one. I'm going to X out, cancel, so I can show you method number two. Method number two, I'm going to select the mirror tool. Okay, notice that these guys are blank. That's because I didn't pre-select them. So in order to select them, I've got to hit the plus right here and say, okay, what plane do I want? I want the right plane. What feature do I want? I want the slot. Notice now previewed. Okay, and then green check and I'm good. So that's method number one. Two. Method number two. How many people like method number one? How many people like method number two? See, you got a few. All right. So now I'm going to show you method number three. All right. Method number three. I go to the mirror tool. I don't like having to expand and unexpand the feature tree like that, so I'm going to show you a little trick. I can actually open this up, and there it is, and there it is. See that? I get my browser back and green check. Okay, that's number three. Sorry?
I didn't see what you opened there.
Oh! You blinked and missed it. Okay, so let's do it again. I'm going to select the mirror tool, and then I drag right here. And I drag it down to open up the to reveal a hidden browser behind my properties pane, and then fill in my boxes and then green check. Is that cool? And then I'm just going to rename this. So I know what it is, and save. Okay, so now it's your turn to mirror the slot. I've shown you a couple different ways to do the mirror. You got to pick which way you want to do it. Okay, so we want to place a hole on this face right here. So once again, we want to select that face. And do we want to select that top sketch tool or the bottom sketch tool? Bottom. And then notice it went normal to me because of the option that I set. I'm going to draw a circle, so I'm going to use the circle. Now she uses a circle to place a hole. I really don't like using circles to place holes. I like to use the hole wizard. There's a lot of different reasons for that, but one is because if I use the hole wizard, it gets recognized as a hole, and I create my drawing. I can use the hole notes tool. Also, when it goes over to other software like Mastercam or the 3D printer, it's recognized as a hole versus an extruded cut. But she's doing an extruded cut, so I'm going to just go along with her and do it. So I select the circle tool. I want my circle to be vertically over that origin. Okay, and it's going to be diameter 10, and it's going to be 29 from the bottom. Okay, now mine still says underdefined, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a vertical constraint between the origin and the center point. So I just hold down my control key, I select the center point, I select the origin, and then I can say vertical. If I hold the control key and make my two selections, then it'll automatically know that I'm adding a relationship. Otherwise, I have to go up to the ribbon and select add relation, and sometimes I find it faster to hold down the control key, just say what I want it to be. Then as soon as I add that relationship, it says fully defined. Then I can go over to the features ribbon, and I'm going to do an extruded cut. And I want that cut to be through all. And there's another reason why I want this to be through all. If I set it as through all instead of the width, then my hole note will say diameter through all, which is the proper way to designate a hole. Okay? And then I go green check. And I'm just going to call that my front hole. Okay. There it is. And I'm going to save, and I'm going to stop here. Okay? And that gives you almost an hour and a half, a little more, to do homework. Get caught up, right? And even leave early for the weekend if you want. Okay?